Welcome to the Got Money and Sex podcast. My name is Raul Velasquez. I'm here with my beautiful queen.
Yes, so happy to be here. My name is Vivian Velasquez.
And today we have a great episode. We're going to talk about end of the school year. If you're facing relationship challenges, if you're facing maybe challenges with your kids, hopefully this podcast is going to give you some insight that you're not alone. It's going to give you some strategies to be able to navigate through this uncharted times. And at the same time, I'm going to be able to talk a little bit about maybe some sex as well.
This is Vivian Velasquez.
And this is Raul Velasquez.
Welcome to the podcast. I think we really need to incorporate that because that's like our big key, and I think we often forget. So Raul and I have been married for almost 24 years this year.
It's going to be 25 this year.
It's going to be 25? That's right. It's going to be 25 this year.
I know, because you keep pushing me for the party that you want to have.
Well, and I'm kind of forgetting about the party because recently you went to see your friend and he has the jewelry and the diamonds.
I asked you, do you want the diamond or do you want the party? You have to choose. You can't have both.
I'm torn. I may find a way to get two. But I think it's something important that we talk about this because, end of year brings up a lot of challenges. It brings up a lot of emotion, and not necessarily just good or bad, but just a lot for us. Like I know that the queens that I've been talking to, like that we've all been feeling kind of the same thing. We're on like the same frequency. And if you've been listening to us, like we have 2 kids and they're teenagers already, but I don't think it really matters like whether they're small kids or older kids. There's always challenges that we face. Yeah. So I think something that we want to talk about today is stuff that we go through, and hopefully that you're going through it too, and that you could see your challenges from a different aspect, from a different perspective. And it's like, how do I find a better outcome, a better solution to the challenges that I'm facing right now?
One of the things that's coming to me right now is, I've been documenting our journey with my son since he was in 6th grade.
Okay, documenting like
doing
on
videos,
Facebook,
Facebook. I mean, he's been kind of like my little protege since he was
yeah.
in kindergarten, going to 1st grade. Yeah. He loves to be on videos.
He loves to talk. He's just like his dad.
In this stage of him graduating high school, it was beautiful to see that we had our time with each other. It was beautiful to see that, I have tons of videos in my phone, tons of videos of content of him and I just having conversations of podcasting, him and I just talking about real life situations. And I think a lot of parents may be feeling that our kids are growing up too quickly and I didn't have the time, or I missed the time, or I wish I could take back time so I could be with them. What do you say to those moms right now that are feeling like, I wish I have more time with my kids?
And I think that's exactly what we feel, right? Like there's this overwhelming amount of emotion because it's like you as a mom, especially for like the end of year, like you want to get it all done. You feel like it lays on your shoulders and it's like this burden of things that you got to get done. And something that I talk to my queens a lot is like this ideal woman that comes in, the woman that's always by our side, that's always pushing for more, because it's never enough what we do. Like it's just like, okay, there is more, and it comes from a place of like maybe a protective mechanism, just trying to like for us to show up for the world in the best version of ourselves. But it doesn't get us there to that place. It almost like depletes our energy, and it makes you feel like we're less than. Ultimately, like the opposite of what she's trying to do. And I'm having this conversation with each and every one of my queens, and even with myself as my son was graduating this last week. It's like you think that you didn't do your best. You think that you didn't have enough time. And statistics show, and I was sharing this with someone earlier today, that we spend about 35 minutes total with our kids in a day. 35 minutes from the whole day. You could be in the same bedroom, you could be cooking for them, you could be in the same household, but you're not fully present,
you're fully
right?
Present, spending the
fully
time
present.
That's quality time.
Right. And that's completely different. So that's like a whole different thing. And when that kind of like the statistic was like in front of me, was like, wow, that is so true. Because what happens for us moms is like we're running and we're doing like 20 million things we wear very many hats and we're so good at it. But when the time comes like this, when like your son is graduating or where you have all this like milestones that happen in front of you, then you feel like, oh, I wasn't fully present. Like, where did time go? Like, where was I? And it's neither good or bad. It's just feedback for what's happening in your life. And, you know, there's a lot of emotion that happens. And for me, like, I know, like, I had a lot of emotions happen for me this week. And what I tell the women that I coach is allow yourself the time to be with that emotion, because it's something that we don't often do. We kind of just brush it underneath the rug and it's like, I'll deal with it later, or it's not really important, but it is important because it's something that you're feeling. And I would say to the women that are listening out there, it's like when you gift yourself the time to feel that, whether it's good or bad, you actually acknowledge what's happening inside, and it's a sense of release, and then you have space for more. What do I mean by more? More presence. Ultimately, that's what we want. So then because I did that myself, I took the responsibility to do that for me. Then that week that my son was graduating, the week that my daughter was going through like this pressure for test taking and showing up for like classes, I was able to be fully present for them because I took care of myself.
I think a lot of parents, what the solution is, let's just keep our kids busy, right? And busy doesn't necessarily mean quality time.
Right.
I remember when we had Alejandro, our first son, my biggest fear was not being a good father. And for the first 5 years, I was hardly ever home. For the first 5 years, I was hardly, like, I was in the office because I was focusing on building the business. I was focusing on providing. And I think it's important to know that the father brain has to turn on to provide. Somebody told me, when you have kids, you're gonna work twice as hard. I said, man, it's impossible because I'm already working as hard as I can. They weren't aligned. When my son was born, I started working twice as hard because I had a different drive. It wasn't just about me and you. It was, now we have this life that God gave us.
The kingdom is growing.
And now we have to show up at our best. But I remember when I was coming home and I was dedicating at least 1 hour, the hour of power. And I was play with them, and then my daughter came, and there was 2 of them, and I made it a ritual every single day. It doesn't matter how tired I was, doesn't matter how shitty of a day I had. Nothing mattered.
That's right.
Except the hour of power. And to me, that hour of power is what I continue to remember every single time. So when I do my daily ritual, right, my ritual when I tap into gratitude, I take myself to those moments. I take myself to those moments where they were little babies, when I was holding them, where they couldn't wait until daddy gets home. They couldn't wait to play with me. And those are the magic moments. Yeah. And as I was remembering, because, you know, my son graduated, I was flooding myself with memories of gratitude. I also, before I visualized, when he was a little kid, I visualized him graduating. I visualized him being in front of and having a diploma. I visualized him, you know, succeeding in school. And when he came out of that stage and he looked at me, he gave me a hug, and he told me, he started crying, and he started telling me that, thank you for not giving up on me. Thank you for setting the example. Thank you for all the work that you've done. And I started to cry that moment because I heard this before. I visualized this before. It wasn't the first time. So every single time before, for years, I made the intention to become the man that I was able to lead my son so he could become a man. And I think a lot of times we are unconscious about our behavior because we think that fatherhood is just about providing. Fatherhood is just about, let me give him everything that I didn't have. When the reality is that your son needs your presence. Your son needs your example. Your son needs you to start seeing what's possible if you don't live on fear, if you just start being more present and giving quality time as opposed to just giving them the money or giving them the things that you didn't have.
And I think that's, you know, now that you say that, is every time I ask them when we have these conversations, we've given them a lot of stuff that's material. And at the end of the day, it's not that it didn't matter to them, but the time that you gifted them meant and mattered so much more in their hearts that they will never forget. So it doesn't matter like what I did. It was funny because I was thinking about that. I'm like, I did so much like leading up to that time. Like I took such care of them, and I sacrificed so much and I did all these things, but like they loved just being with you and being, you know, with the fun dad and jumping and just being joyful and laughing and doing all these things with you. And those things really mark, you know, a part in them where it's like, I feel loved and I feel seen. And at the end of the day, that's what we really want. And I think that's really important for us as parents. And not to say that we're doing the right thing, we're still learning. And I always tell my kids this, I'm like, you know, forgive me because we are parents once. We're learning as we go along.
Parent is the only job that you're not going to know how good of a job you did or if you fucked it up until years.
We don't know.
We could have messed it up and said, hey, these kids are going to be in therapy 10 years from now.
Right. And we're still trying. Like we are in progress of like just trying to be the best version of us. And then I could show up as a parent, I could show up as a wife. And you know, when I say that to them, and I said that to my daughter, and she was like, Mom, you're right, you know, like this is your first go around of being a mom. So every time I'm like, also that's one of the things that I've learned, to humble myself. And sometimes you have to ask for forgiveness, and it doesn't come from a place of like to belittle what you're doing, but just taking responsibility of the unknown factors that we have in our life. And I think when we've showed that part of us, when I've shown that part of me, it's like, wow, like you're asking me for forgiveness. Wow, you're giving me this love when you're so busy, you're so tired, you're still giving love, you're still overpouring on me. And I think that's something that like I love and I respect so much about you, that it doesn't matter what happens on the outside world. When you come through the door, you've always given the kids your very best. And I love that. And, you know, it's been such an emotional week for us because we got to see our kids, just both of them, not just Alejandro graduating, but also like my daughter, the way that she's been showing up. And like all of that is a reflection of who we are at home. So if you're watching this and you're going through challenges with your kids, whether they're little or they're graduating, whether it's high school or college, like be gentle on yourself and know that you did your very best. And you listening to this is like, how can I have a deeper sense of awareness to show up in a different way from this point forward? Because what happened in the past, we really can't go back and change it. Like, how do we go back? We can't. How do we be fully present right now and show up to the best way that I know how? How do I love a little deeper? How do I respect and understand a little deeper? And that's for our kids, yes. And then how do we tie that to our spouses? And when we talk about God and sex, because it's so important, just kind of transitioning into that, because we've been talking a lot about this too this week with our couples, our power couples, our power couples. And there's so much power in the couple, and yet we always forget. You know, it's like this gentle little reminders that we need, and we need it too. You know, like we are reminding each other all the time of these things that we need. And sex is such an important thing in our lives that sometimes we take for granted. Sometimes we're like, I don't need this right now. I don't need this right now. I'm busy. Like, you know that I love you. I've been married to you for 25 years. You know that I'm here for you, baby. Like, I'm not going anywhere. But that's not enough. Just like we say, you know, sometimes love is not enough. It's not. Like, we need sex. We need intimacy. Well, we need connection.
Ultimately, what couples need is intimacy. It's connection. We had a conversation yesterday with a couple.
But intimacy is also like, is, you know, like you taking the time to connect with me in a deeper level, right? Like the intimacy. And sometimes that's important, but then also like we need to have like this fun, loving, maybe like outrageous type of sex.
So let's talk about what we talked about with a couple yesterday.
Okay.
Right? Because they were going through the challenge of like end of school. They have to like switch the kids to another school. The kids are going through challenges. Just like, you know, everyday parent goes through shit. Right.
We all do.
So everyday parents go through shit. So we all go through shit. So we went through the 4 KPIs, right? Commitment. How is your commitment? And both of them, like a commitment is 9. We're 9 out of 10. She's my ride or die. He's my soulmate.
She's not going anywhere. Okay? We're not going anywhere. We're
Second
solid.
one, communication. How's your communication? Communication. I'm telling her what she should do, and she goes, well, I'm not sure if I should do this. So they communicate, even though they're communicating,
They're not listening.
they're not listening to each other's points.
Yeah. Or we're not learning to communicate the right way at the right time with the right words.
And then we said certainty. How's your certainty level? The men have full certainty. That I know exactly what I need to do, but she doesn't agree with me or she doesn't follow me. And she's like, I'm uncertain because it's my kids, it's all these challenges.
Right.
And then we'll go to the fourth one. How's your connection?
Mm-hmm.
And then that's the one thing that both of them agreed on was there was lack of connection. Both of them were like a 2 or a 3.
Mm-hmm.
So that shows you. And I said, what was the last time you had sex? I was like, I had sex maybe a month ago, 2 months ago. I said, there is no connection, there is no intimacy, there's no sex. So therefore, both of you are drained and you're leaking energy and you're expecting to solve big issues
Without having connection.
taking care of yourselves.
Yes.
So I think the one thing that you and I have done is we always prioritize our relationship. When our son was born, before he was 1 year old, you and I went on vacation. You were crying. You didn't want to go. You said I was a bad dad. I said, no, we need to have our moment because after these kids leave to college, it's you and me.
I know.
And if we and I we don't know each other, we're going to have 2 strangers live in the house.
And, we as a couple, we allocate this time and we put it in our schedule, and it doesn't always work out the way that we want it to, because we've had instances, and I could just think of like the last time that we tried to like have some quality time together, some connection, have some sex, and it didn't work out the way that my expectations were, because expectations sometimes are like, a very high standard for women. And then me looking back is just like, at least we created the space to be in the same room, to slow down. Maybe it might have been not the way that I wanted it to be because, my ideal woman was kicking in and it wasn't perfection. And that was just an illusion for me, right? But at least we were there. And if we as couples don't put the time, money, and energy into our sexual intimacy, desire, into any of that stuff, like, it falls to the bottom of the list.
Listen, at the end of the day, your kids are going to leave. At the end of the day, your kids are never going to stay there. So then if you don't build that relationship, we never built that relationship from the first time that we had kids. You and I, number one, wouldn't still be married. Number two, we'd never be able to lead the kids the way that we're leading them. Number three, we wouldn't be as happy because we would have some regrets.
Fulfilled. That's right.
So, I think the key here is having that foundation.
Right.
If you're having challenges with your kids, it's a reflection of the couple.
The
you get your shit together first before you're trying to help your kids. And that's one thing that I've done from the beginning is like, Vivian, like you are number one. I mean, it's even a joke sometimes that we tell our kids is like, if there's a fire in the house, you know who I'm saving. And both of them will say, you know what? I know my dad is saving mom. So because we could always make more of you. We cannot make more of mom. So I'm saving mom. If I have time, I'll go back for you guys. But they know the priority is mom. They know the priority is dad.
I know. And that's kind of sometimes hard for moms to hear. And it's like, no, like you take care of the kids, like you save the kids. And that's kind of speaks volumes as to like where you are in your relationship. And, we know that it takes a big commitment to create that space, and especially right now with summertime coming through, and you have the kids at home, and you have maybe like no schedules, and they're always home and having to create all these activities for them. I really want you to have this awareness of like, how do you create time and prioritize your spouse just as much as you prioritize your kids, because they also need attention. And it's something like beautiful that we've been hearing from our power couples is like, what I want her to see me is with the same eyes as she sees the kids. I want her to see me and to love me the same way, the same attention. It's like, this men are yearning and wanting to be loved and to be seen as much as women. And at the beginning, like I didn't feel that, but the more that I hear is like, they want that. They want to be seen and they want to be a priority. So all that to say is, if you're listening to this, just allow yourself to come back and know that your man needs you. Like, sex has to be a priority in your life because you get to have a partner next to you that loves you.
And you can't use kids as an excuse.
Right.
It's always hotel rooms. I told them, download hoteltonight.com, get some bargains. There's always
That's
hotel
so funny
rooms.
that you
There's
have
always
that
the
app.
car.
This is not sponsored, just
always,
so you know.
For the guys, there's always a studio in the office when nobody's here.
Stop it.
But there's always ways, right, to figure things out. And I think that's where a lot of couples get stuck and like, oh, I don't have the time. I can't do this. I have the kids. Don't use the kids as an excuse.
Right. No.
We make money. We make priority making money. You can make priorities to have intimacy with your wife, to have sex with your wife.
And then it feels so good. It feels so good after.
Same thing with women. You have to make that priority.
Of course.
I think men don't want to have the conversation that they're not feeling fulfilled sexually because of the fear of, I don't have the time. Like if she says, okay, I want to have more sex, where are you going to have more time? Some of the guys that we run with, we run multiple companies, like where do I squeeze more time? There's a guy that I'm coaching, the guy says, well, now she wants to have sex all the time. Now I don't have time. I don't have the time for it. She wants more. Like, so it's a different problems. But at the end of the day, you have to make time for what's important to you.
But that's a really good problem to have. And once you start to have those things, like when God becomes a priority, when your connection with yourself and sex and your partner and your kids and all of that like falls into place, you feel like this sense of like, I feel so like almost like balanced.
And what I tell my guys, schedule it. I know it takes the romance out of it, but you have to schedule the sex nights in order for you to actually know there's full of certainty. The woman has certainty, the man has certainty, and we're going to get together. And whether at the beginning you may not even want to, but then afterwards you get in the mood and things happen. And that's after being married for 25 years.
Get creative.
We have to get creative. You have to schedule, you have to book it.
And that's when we talk about like this, our 4 core foundation, which is like having the communication of what you need, each other's needs, right? Connection of like what fills you up. What are the things that make you feel abundant and full? Certainty, knowing what you're doing, where you're going together, and connection.
At the end of the day, if the relationship is not going the way that you want it to go, the man has to take ownership because he has been ordained by God to be the leader. I know a lot of women that don't want to hear it. They don't want to hear that the man is the leader. But the reality is men are the leaders in their families. So the only way a woman is going to submit to a man is if the man is submitted to a higher power.
Right.
If a man is not submitted to God or submitted to a higher power, the woman cannot submit to him fully because she's always going to think that he's guiding her based on his own knowledge and wisdom.
Right.
The reason that you submit to what I say we're going to do is because you know that I have the best intentions, that I'm constantly connecting with a higher power, with God, with the universe, to be able to make the decisions based not on what I want, but based on what I've been called to do.
And that's really difficult for even a lot of women to hear. And that's a whole different, like maybe podcast on the sense when like somebody says like you submit to me. It's like the reason why we have the relationship that we have is because I know that behind you is not just like you as Raul, but we serve a higher purpose, which is God. And I'm not just submitting like to you,
Exactly.
which I am submitting to you in a sense.
But it's not me as like
it's not like your
the
ego.
Man. I am submitting to the man. You're submitting to the leadership that the man is exuding because of the proven
and
results.
Because it's
the trust. Because I put in the work.
That's right.
Maybe when we started our relationship 25 years ago, we couldn't have that conversation because it was you pulling your side, I was pulling mine.
It's like,
so the
I'm going to take care of me because you're not doing the right thing.
We were constantly, it was a struggle.
That's right.
But
because you show up.
Because we put in the work, because you've seen, 17 years of raising a son that's graduating, these things don't happen by chance.
That's right.
It happens by design. You're putting in the work. You're putting in the effort. You're submitting to God and asking God for wisdom. You're visualizing, like I said, I visualize my son graduating now. I'm visualizing my son having kids and being married. So I'm constantly putting out there and asking God, who do I need to become as a father to guide my son to become a man that he was destined to be? Who do I need to become as a father to guide my daughter so she could make the right decisions to be able to fulfill her purpose? Who do I have to become as a husband so I can guide my wife to fulfill her mission in this world? Who do I have to become as a businessman to lead men to be able to help them see what's possible if they let themselves be guided? So those are the questions I ask myself every single day, and it's hard. It's hard because sometimes the pressure is easy to say, you know what, it'll work out.
And that's the challenge, because there's a lot of men out there who are in this place that are complacent, and they just show up the way that they need to show up. Because I'm telling you, like, I would not be able to continue to surrender to someone, whether it's you or whoever it is, like, you know, that is not showing the best interest for me, the kids, our household, yours, even yourself. Like, so I love that you say that, and I know, like, that's a great, like, controversy, but listen, it works for us. We are happily, lovingly, passionately married and serving each other, and it's not easy. I'm not saying it's easy, but the more that you trust and you feel that safety, then it's like, okay, I'm gonna follow you to the end of the world.
And that's where the trust comes in. And when you have broken the trust, because
there's a lot of rebuilding.
It's a lot of rebuilding. So there's a lot of men out there saying, Raul, I fucked up, or Raul, I give up. I tell you from my experience, you have to rebuild. Sometimes we have to knock down the foundation to rebuild.
Agree.
So don't get caught up on the story of who you were. If I live on guilt and shame of who I was, I'm going to be able to be who I am now.
And then it comes back to what we are talking about, this foundation. Like, always go back to those 4 things. How are you communicating those things to me? How are you bringing certainty? How are you finding the connection that I need at this moment right now in my life?
I know it comes down to how committed am I?
How committed are you to yourself and to me?
How committed am I to put in the work?
Yeah.
In life, you don't get what you want. In life, you only get what you're committed to do. So if you're not committed to put in the work, I get a lot of guys who call me, Raul, I would love to have a marriage like yours, but that means I have to find a woman like Vivian. And I said,
that's
well,
not necessary.
if
there's only one Vivian.
If you're not willing to put in the work, you're not going to attract a queen into your life. You have a bunch of princesses, of course, that they want to be with you just because of the money or because of the good time.
Right.
If you want a queen, you have to step up as a king.
And this is another thing that I just, you know, like, I love to give just God all the grace for everything that you see in front of you, but none of it would be true and in front of you if God was not our guiding force. Because there were so many times where, you know, like, you had to look for God in your own way. I looked for God in my own way, how He leads you. Because when, like, you feel and fall short in your own ways, like, we all will fall short and feel short in our own ways. That's when you got to go back and look at God.
Well, I found God through my kids.
No.
I found God when I had Alejandro. He changed my life. When I had Abigail, I went even deeper. And she, you know, my son changed my life to help me see what's possible. My daughter changed my life to help me remember who I am.
And she would continue to remind you.
Yes, and she continues to push me to grow. But that's how I found God when I realized that if I will give my life for these kids, if I could sacrifice, I'll do anything for these kids. Now I understand God's unconditional love for us. Yeah. Now I can understand why He did what He did. He sacrificed His son so we could have life. So that for me, my kids are my biggest teachers. And as we continue in this path, I just pray that I continue to surrender to God's will to help me and shape me. I know He's going to shape me through fire. I know this is just another stage that we're going through. There's another level, and that's why we do this podcast, to share this. And hopefully our kids, when they watch us, when they're old, they say, okay, my dad, you know, didn't know what he was talking about, or my dad fucked up and that was not the way to do it. Anyways, we documented our journey. Hopefully you're coming along for the ride.
So we want to thank you for watching, and just remember, as you start this summertime, you start this, like, new season, allow yourself, one, to find not just God, money, and sex, but also, like, to find the time where, like, you allocate and make each other a priority. You make your kids a priority and make yourself a priority. Don't just, you know, go into this new season of just like, okay, it's like a free for all. It's not. Allow yourself to be a priority, and then you'll see how everything else falls into place.
And give yourself the opportunity to celebrate how far you've come. I know it's probably your son's graduation, your daughter's graduation, somebody's graduating in your life. You have to give yourself some of the credit to see, like, you know what? We're making it. We're not perfect, but we're making it through. And enjoy this time. Enjoy the summer season. Enjoy the time together, because we only get a certain number of summers with our kids when they're eventually going to be on their own. So enjoy this time. We've done that, and we're gonna go away for a couple of weeks, and we're gonna enjoy our kids. We're gonna enjoy the season, but most important, recharge. I think use the season for the summer to reset, recharge, and recommit. Recommit to your vision, recommit to your family, recommit to God, and recommit to yourself. Because at the end of the day, the moment that you start recommitting, you're gonna get stronger, and you're gonna be able to go to the next level, because the best is yet to come. Yes. So thank you for watching. Thank you for being with us. So don't forget to subscribe. Don't forget to send us your messages and your questions, and we'll answer them next time. Learn it, live it, experience it.
Love life.
Love life. If you receive any value from this conversation, comment, subscribe, and share as we continue to impact more people and take them to the next level.
And please send us your comments and questions so we could answer them in the next podcast.
See you in the next episode.